nice little groove to that one, actually.
I know.
That one, not bad.
I was
like
digging that.
What's up, Nerf herders? Welcome back to the N.A.P. On the somewhat regular. Like, I think it's a safe bet that we'll get one at least like once a week. At this
Yeah,
point.
we've been kind of holding to that. We need to get back to numbering these, though. I mean, I get that we're not doing the season thing anymore, but we got to number them.
We don't need to get back to it. We just need to do it.
We need to start doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of our problem. This is Nerf Herders Assemble episode 547. Something. I don't even think we're that.
I don't think we're that high. Not yet.
Do you think we're past 100 by now?
I
don't know if
maybe.
I don't know if we're quite past 100 just yet.
Maybe we're like 75-ish. I don't know. I think we're in the second half of the first.
I'll count it up after the show today, and I'll give you an actual count. We'll go from there. I have a lot of episodes that I'm gonna have to. We have a lot of episodes that we're gonna have to go through. Maybe this is just episode 1 since we've started naming them. New scheme, screw it. Yeah, no, whatever. How's it going, Nerf Herders? Welcome back to the show. As I've said twice now. We're going to start off with a lightning round today because I know us, and we will talk about the Queen's Gambit for quite a while.
Yeah, that's our main topic, so we're going to get some smaller things out of the way. But first, how are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing pretty good. I was about to ask you the same question. So
yeah?
You beat me right to it. I mean, first of all, I'm a little insulted that you didn't give me a heads up about one of our lightning round stories that we're going to talk about. I'm a little peeved with you that I didn't get
depending
told.
on which one it is, I'd be surprised if you didn't already know about it because, I just came up with these on the fly. So, but we'll see. We'll see which one it is.
That's fair.
You let me know which one you're peeved about.
I guess it depends on which one that you're doing there. But you called me out. You've called me out like 3 separate times, and then you also rubbed Netflix as the king of streaming in my face. So
I feel like yes, I did.
I feel like you're particularly combative, and I feel insulted. I don't know what I did to deserve such abuse. But I will not deny that Netflix is the king of streaming right now. But Disney Plus was my vote for 2020, as it were. But I for a little bit I was like, I don't care how he's doing because he's being mean. He's being a little evil. No, I have been things have been crazy busy. So I've got my own musical projects that are going on right now. So not only am I recording other bands, like I've got a drum set and just a spaghetti of cables just kind of coming through here. I've got my recording deck here. It's nice. An absolute madhouse. So there's just cables running off to a drum set and microphones everywhere. But I've got my own projects that are going to be coming out here one of them is going to be coming out here in February. And so like we're kind of scrambling to get everything ready because we want to have a couple singles ready. We want to have some music videos ready. So
exciting.
And I'm filming those videos, and so it's been crazy. I'm trying to get some downtime in, and so I ran off and I grabbed what is probably my favorite graphic. I don't know if you would call it a graphic novel. I would call it a graphic novel. It's quite long, but it is an excellent Star Wars story. Yeah,
I read that a long time ago. It's been a while, but I remember it being good.
Well, so I just, what, I saw it in I was over at Krypton, and I was like, what, I was near Krypton, and I was like, I haven't been in there in a long ass time. So I had my mask with me, which is rare. Normally I forget the mask and I just have to go home. But I remembered it this time, ran in, and it was there. And
nice.
You know what? I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'll buy a comic on a blind without any prior knowledge. I didn't look it up or anything like that. I was just like, that's got Vader on the cover. That might be good. And it ended up being great. So I'm only halfway through it though. Like I haven't even finished it yet, but so far I'm like really, really enjoying it.
Nice.
And then I redid my Marvel Unlimited subscription. So I've been back to reading comics and trying to kind of like bone up on some of the characters that we've got coming here in the 2021s and 22s.
Yeah.
Of the recent not the recent, but the future of Disney Plus is going to be made of some slightly more obscure characters in the Marvel Cinematic, or in the Marvel comic universe anyway, not the most well known, and and I'm subject to that myself, so I had to refresh.
Nice.
How have you been doing?
I've been doing good. Last week, Maddie and I had some meetings. She's getting ready to have a back surgery coming up here at the end of the month. So we had a few meetings for that last week with lawyer and nurse and everything, kind of getting ready for that. So that was pretty tense week. And then I saw this really shitty sequel to Olympus Has Fallen that didn't have Gerard Butler. It was on like all of the news channels. So it was kind of a shitty week last week. I don't know. I don't know what that. Where's the ding? Anyway,
like, for a second, I was just like, wait, Gerard was in like all of them. I'm like, what is he talking?
Yeah,
I was like,
wasn't in this one? But so yeah, it was kind of a weird week last week. But I'm doing well and keeping busy. And I got some books back from Houch and Bindery to add to my shelf here. So I was working on that. And yeah, doing good for the most part.
Can you tell how little sleep I've been getting lately? Like, I think I got some like crazy bags under my eyes. The Bindery, what's this? I'm not familiar with.
Houch and Bindery is a book bindery outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, and basically all of these books, all these custom books, I've made through them. So I'll send like here's a book, here's one I'm working on. I'll send like, six or seven individual graphic novels that I want bound into a single hardcover, and then like these are other Batman Beyond books. So that's what all these are. These are custom bound comics that I design the covers for, and then they make. So that's what the majority of my bookshelf is that. So yeah,
we're gonna blow this channel up, and those volumes are gonna be really, really valuable. Like
that's what I want.
The Josh Howell collection.
Well, speaking of, we might as well launch into the lightning round, because I posted this on our channel last week or earlier this week, right after Christmas. I've mentioned this before. I write movie reviews for another site every once in a while, and sometimes those come with interviews with like the crew or the talent or the directors. And this one, I did a review for a movie called Synchronic, and it came out in the fall, and it came out on digital today or yesterday. And I got to interview the directors, which is Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. And so this is just a screenshot from that video. So that was really fun. But their interview started out with Moorhead recognizing some of the titles in the back and asking me what those were, and then Benson talking about like his favorite Batman graphic novels and everything. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So we just talked about Batman for a little bit.
That was a link. Yep.
That was a
I saw a comment and I was okay.
So we talked about that. We talked about Synchronic, and Synchronic was on my top 10 list last year. If you're watching this and you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. It was a really damn good movie. Have you seen the trailer for that yet?
I have not. Maybe that's something we do for the live show. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it was good. It was really good. It was like a time travel movie with Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan. So anyway, we talked all about this, and they were like, yeah, we got a new project coming up we can't talk about. And I knew they had just gotten done, like they had directed one episode of The Twilight Zone. And I was like...
Can't talk about it is a very generous term for...
right.
For what they have going on, too.
I'm like, okay, well, they just did Twilight Zone. Maybe they got another thing coming that they just can't talk about. And then, like, last week, it was announced that they're going to direct multiple episodes of Moon Knight for Marvel Studios. So, holy shit. Talk about going from... I mean, they're, they're indie directors. Synchronic is their biggest movie so far, but it's still like they went from Synchronic to Marvel Studio directors, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I wish I could have got the scoop, but I'm still like freaking out that I got to talk to them in general. So it's
I
kind of
wonder
big
if
news.
I feel like they could have gotten away with that. They could have told
Maybe.
us and be like, you know what?
Oh,
not
yeah, for
enough
sure.
people. Not enough people watch these guys. It's not going to blow up or anything.
But we could have gotten like 1 million
We
subscribers.
we definitely could have.
But
that's
yeah. So, but yeah, so that's
Marvel's
the Chronic
Kevin
and this
Feige
is
and his
somebody's-
NDAs and all that shit.
Right. This isn't real. This is a rendition somebody made. That's the real. Title graphic. But
Sure.
who's playing Moon Knight? We just said his
Oscar
name.
Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, and you're especially excited about Moon Knight, right?
So yeah, I remember there was a particular time when I really got into comics. It was I was at my local gaming shop, and no, it wasn't. I wasn't quite there. Like I was hanging out with a friend who I hung out with at this gaming shop all the time. And the gaming shop had just started. It doesn't exist anymore. Otherwise, I'd like a name drop because
Name drop it, yeah.
But this friend of mine had a box of old comics, and a lot of them they weren't I can't even remember the brand of I can't even remember what they were called. It wasn't a brand that I was familiar with. It wasn't Valiant. It wasn't DC. It wasn't Marvel. It wasn't any of the big ones. It wasn't Dark. I think there was like a couple Dark Horse comics in there, but they were I think they were like the advertisement comics that they would put out where it's got like little snippets of several different comics that just kind of like pull people in. Probably like the old version of like Free Comic Day back in the day where this is what they gave out to just pique people's interest. It was like comic trailers. Well, there was a Moon Knight comic in there, and I'm actually going through my Marvel Unlimited to see if I can find out which one it was, because I know I've got that box somewhere. It is somewhere.
Nice.
It is somewhere in this building. I just got to figure out where it is in this house. But it had a Moon Knight comic in it, and I had at this point I was already like somewhat familiar with Marvel, but I wasn't like super into the comics yet. But yeah, you run into a character, and it was very clear that like he was suffering from a mental disorder, which for him is dissociative identity disorder, is multiple personalities. Which, I mean, if you get into the lore of Moon Knight, it's not actual multiple personalities. It kind of depends on which branch of Moon Knight that you're going from. But yeah, it's this dude. He's got multiple personalities. We'll leave it as simple as that. And he's basically been had his mind taken over by the Egyptian god Khonshu, and Khonshu has like these multiple aspects for him, and basically becomes this hero while struggling through this disorder. And it was really compelling, and he's fighting some gruesome, like the comic that I read today, just to I literally redid my membership today. Like they're already talking about how one of the things that Moon Knight is famous for is he cut off a dude's face. Like just cut off a dude's face.
Nice.
And like the first villain that he runs into, he's dealing with not villain, but the first bad guy that he runs into is just like the first nothing bad guy since coming back to New York, is this dude who's been cutting people up to take their body parts and attach them to himself to kind of fix himself. Like some messed up stuff. So it's really interesting. That was back in the I think that particular issue was back in 2014 or 2011. So I'm reading somewhat recent stuff because I feel like that's probably where they're going to pull from the most, is more of the recent comics. Yeah, he's a really interesting character. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of grit, which it sounds like Marvel's probably going to start kind of leaning towards. We had another, not necessarily dark, but a lot more inappropriate announcement, or an appropriate related announcement as far as Marvel goes, that we're going to talk about today too. Doctor Strange has already been labeled that the next film in that is going to be a lot scarier. There's gonna be some horror elements to it. There's been some rumors that are really stirring up about the Marvel Netflix series
Mm-hmm.
characters being brought back. Which, I mean, the Netflix characters, especially Jessica Jones and Daredevil, they got into some dark stuff too.
Right.
Um, and yeah, somebody was. I think Kevin Feige basically didn't. Whenever Kevin Feige doesn't outwardly deny something that gets brought to him, like it's more than likely there's a good chance that he's
Sure. There's some hope
got
there.
it out
Yeah.
there. And we already knew that there was a bunch of projects that he didn't talk about during the investors presentation, which is where we found out about Moon Knight, or we got
Mm-hmm.
confirmed that Moon Knight was coming.
Yep.
So yeah, I feel like it's a Moon Knight is going to be a very good part, a very good chapter in this kind of like new era of Marvelness. And I rambled on about it too long. Like that's like I'm really excited to see this new era that Marvel jumps into, and we're also like 2 days away from being able to watch WandaVision, so
Right.
which
Well,
is
I'll
already
be
showing some
interested.
kind of dark elements for itself too.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into WandaVision because we've already kind of talked a lot about it, but I
Yes,
did
we
hear
have.
something about how WandaVision is technically rated TV PG. Um, and I don't know if the ratings for TV and streaming are different. I do know that Disney always kind of gets some leeway where other companies don't. So I'll be interested to see how dark WandaVision gets. But this Moon Knight, I mean, besides the gruesome stuff you mentioned, is known to have horror elements.
Mm-hmm.
These two directors, even Synchronic, which is mainly a sci-fi movie, has horror elements in it, and their past movies are more horror based. So I'll be interested to see how dark it gets, and if Disney Plus ever gets to a point where they start putting some type of warnings on it, or because Disney Plus is still Disney Plus, and so far it's not tiered or gated or anything like that. So
Right.
I don't think it's going to be like a hard R Moon Knight or anything like that. But I'll be interested to see. Like I wouldn't even see some of the Netflix Marvel stuff getting on Disney Plus right now because of how family oriented it still is. Now, if they change and they start doing tiers or access, gates, then I could see that happening. But yeah, I'll be interested. We're still a long ways off from the show, but
Right.
I'll be interested to see how it goes.
We definitely need to move on though, because we said lightning round, and
Yeah,
we turned that
we
into
got
a
a lot.
full
We
on
got a lot of
fucking
stuff.
story.
So next here, so that was that. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm
I like you
stoked.
said,
I'm
I had to
stoked.
rub it in your face a
Yeah,
little
this
bit.
is. I knew this was in here. Like, okay, he's really just
So
he's rubbing it in
if
my
you didn't
face. I'm
see it,
feeling attacked.
if you didn't see it earlier this week, Netflix dropped this trailer, which announced that they are going to, besides all the shows that they have, which they've already dropped, like Cobra Kai season 3, they've
Yep.
got a lot of stuff planned show wise. They've announced they're going to drop 70 new films onto their platform over this year. And these are films that they've either personally paid for or they've acquired. And we've got names like the ones you see here: Holly Berry, Idris Elba, Dave Bautista, Gal Gadot, The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence. They've got everybody under the
Did
sun.
Did you already say Jeremy Irons? Because we got him up
Oh
there in
yeah,
the top
of
left
course,
of that
Jeremy
photo
Irons.
there.
How did I miss him? He's right there.
Uh,
They've got everybody under the sun. They're going to release at least one new movie a week all year, and it was just like a highlight reel that was just Chris Hemsworth has another movie coming out. They've got a hell of a lineup, and they've released all 70. You can look it up, New York Times or a lot of other sites. But I'm not gonna lie, man, it looks compelling, and I already
well,
told you how amazing they did last year. But
yeah.
they definitely didn't spend all of their movies in 2020. Apparently, they have boatloads for 2021.
Well, and I wonder how many of these got held up. Like, originally had 2020 release dates, but due to like production issues or something like that, it might have been held back, and so it just
Oh, for sure.
super packed
At least
everything, which
this
is
one,
very
because
possible.
this one's Zack Snyder's
Yeah,
Dawn of the
that one's been
Dead
held up a
movie.
lot.
We know that's been held up, but we know that they've also been trying to fast track it so that he can get back to the Snyder cut. So, um, Yeah, either way, they had a shit ton of content in 2020. I
Yep.
thought that 2021 would kind of not be an off year, but like I just didn't expect this, and you know they didn't need to do it the week before Disney's conference or the week after. They just kind of waited a couple weeks into 2021, and they're like, just in case you forgot about us, here you go. I
Well,
thought that was pretty badass.
nobody forgot about him either because
Hmm.
Netflix is. I will say again. I said 20 Disney was my pick for 2020 as far as best streaming service, but Netflix got us through the pandemic just as much, if not more so.
Yeah. So
So
anyway, if you haven't checked that trailer out, go check it out. There's a lot of cool stuff. That Chris Hemsworth movie, Escape from Spiderhead. Never even heard of that. That looks good. And Leonardo DiCaprio, I'll watch anything he's in. So
yeah,
there's a lot of good stuff in there. Moving on back to Marvel. Um, it was confirmed by Marvel Studios that Deadpool 3 is happening and it will be an R-rated MCU film. Not just an R-rated Marvel film, it will be an R-rated MCU film, which is pretty big.
yeah. This was another one that Kevin Feige kind of let go when he started getting hammered on it. And when you get
Mm-hmm.
confirmation from KF, it's like, all right, yep, we're all right, all steam ahead. Um, Honestly, I feel like this is probably more of a fan service move than strictly a business decision. Obviously, yes, it was a business decision because the Deadpool movies have done great. Um, but yeah, it's also actually a really good foray to kind of like tie some of the X-Men stuff into the Marvel Cinematic Universe a little bit because his was so loosely attributed to the X-Men characters that we've seen in the cinematics already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I mean, obviously there's a shitload of references there, but like
Mm-hmm.
it was left just ambiguous enough, and there were just enough fourth wall breaks to where it wouldn't really have to do too much uh, outside of the realm that already is Deadpool in order to explain his like I can't wait to hear his fourth wall breaking explanations for why he's in the MCU already now. There's definitely going to be a joke about all of a sudden I can talk about all these guys now.
Sure.
Like,
Well, he
and
already called
just
Josh Brolin Thanos in Deadpool
yeah.
2. So I think it'll be good. I hope it's better than Deadpool 2. I like Deadpool 2, but I had some issues with it. But I think if anything, when they start bringing in X-Men and the new casting, I think Deadpool will be essential to that bridge. He'll be the fourth wall breaker that kind of makes it fun, and it might smooth that transition a little bit. He'll
he'll make fun of the weird discrepancies.
Yeah, yeah.
And he'll do it in like that creative Deadpool way, like kind of like one of my favorite jokes from Deadpool 1 was when Colossus is hauling him off of the street. And he's just like, we're gonna go and talk to the professor now. And like the first thing out of the first thing out of Deadpool's mouth is McAvoy or Stewart. These
Yeah,
timelines are so confusing. It's
right.
just I love that. And so it's that level of just like stupid comedy. The other characters don't acknowledge it at all to where it's just like it's gonna
Mhm.
it's just gonna be like, you know what, this doesn't have to make Marvel Cinematic Universe sense like all the other films do. And this is
Yeah.
where like they'll tie all like the weird continuity issues that they might end up running into.
But it is a step. It's a step towards that Fox, those X-Men characters coming in, and it's a big step. I mean, they could have easily said this is going to be an offshoot because we know we have to make a third one, but we're not. It's not going to be an MCU film. They dropped that hammer and said, nope, it is an MCU film. So my expectations just went that far up, because of that. And Kevin Feige doesn't, mix words. He said that on purpose. So
Oh yeah.
that's exciting. Another Marvel news from Fandom Wire. They are claiming that they have a source that says that Victor Von Doom of the Fantastic Four comics, it was going to appear as Victor Von Doom in Black Panther 2. Um,
I am stoked because where
so much.
else is Doctor Doom gonna go to create a vibranium suit of armor than Wakanda itself under some sort of goodwill mission? Like he gets invited in there as part of their outreach thing or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Shows up, turns out to be a dickhead, but manages to get a hold of a suit of armor and goes through all this shit. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is gonna be appealing. I'm into it. I'm
Now this
fucking
is
into it.
claiming
We
this.
still haven't gotten an answer about T'Challa and how they're going to handle that situation, which
Right.
I don't think that we will. I feel
Right.
like I feel like we won't know anything about that until we see a trailer. If not,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit before that in some sort of news release. But this is, especially with like the Fantastic Four news that we've got coming up. I really like that they weren't waiting for Doctor Doom to show up in that. They're like, you know
Yeah,
what? He's
because
going to be a big part. He's going to be a big part of the cinematic universe. We're going to put him in the
right.
cinematic universe.
Right, because they did announce the Fantastic Four movie,
Mm-hmm.
but according to this article, which I don't know if they've officially announced when Black Panther 2 is coming out, but according to this article, Black Panther 2 and the Ant-Man sequel, Quantumania, will come out before Fantastic Four. So, yeah, just what you said. If that's true, then yeah, they're going to introduce a Fantastic Four villain into the universe well before the Fantastic Four. So that's a big deal. That also kind of hints that they're not going to kill him off in the first movie he's in. You know, he might be a bigger player, which he should be because he's a badass. So
Yeah.
yeah,
The other really interesting thing is that Kang the Conqueror is going to be the villain for Quantumania, for Ant-Man,
right, right.
and he has a familial tie to Reed Richards.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a funky one, but it's a tie to Reed Richards, and so we're dealing with uh, more first family issues. And I love that they're not trying to. That was probably like the biggest mistake that Marvel could have made when they were bringing this back in here, is to like rush all of these characters that they couldn't get a hold of, that were part of the Fantastic Four franchise, that were big parts of the Fantastic Four storylines, and then just kind of like trying to rush them all in like right off the bat. It makes so much more sense for them to do it the way that they're doing it now, and that we're starting to see, where
Yeah,
like all these elements are coming together outside. And honestly, I feel like the Fantastic Four movie at this point will be kind of like that precursor movie that they have before like another team up movie or something like that.
for a big event. Yeah, I
It's gonna
agree.
kind of lead up into like the the next first big event of the new Marvel era.
I agree. And Kevin Feige, if you look back at the ground he and the MCU covered in the first 10 years, you know, in the what's affectionately known now as the Infinity, saga, that's impressive. So now that he has more toys to play with, he's not just, he's not going to be lazy about it, and he's not going to be urgent about it, or he knows how to play the long game, but also how to cover ground in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm definitely excited, but this is big news. Granted, I don't think he's confirmed this. I think just Fandom Wire said this. So we'll see if that actually happens. But it makes sense, considering even just from a geological standpoint, why he would be in a Black Panther movie. But one more lightning round.
Real quick
Uh,
before that, speaking of characters, um, think the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Do we feel like we're gonna get some more Adam Warlock information here before Too Terrible Long?
oh, right. That's something that I always forget about because that
Well,
was an
they
end
made it
credit
very
scene.
easy to forget about him. Unfortunately, they
Yeah, and that feels
stuck him
so
in
long ago.
a post stuck him in a post credit scene. Didn't
Right.
even reveal him. Just showed like this birthing pod that he had.
I wonder, yeah. I mean, when I think back to that scene and how far we've come from that point, I mean, just with Endgame and Infinity War and everything like that, I could see I could see Adam War. I could see him being a big bad in like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or 4, or I could just see him being a side villain in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or 4, because we know Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Thor 4 are going to mix with each other.
Yeah, as Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right. So I can't see him being a big part of those movies because we already have Christian Bale in there, so
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. That seems like a thread that's just still out there that no one's grabbed onto yet. Maybe it'll never grab onto it, but we'll see.
I mean, that's all we can do. But I'm really excited about the next lightning round thing that you throw up in there too. So
Yeah, so
stoked.
is this the one you were peeved about?
No, I was peeved about the Netflix one that you threw in there because you just wanted to throw another dig at me.
So this is what I wanted to bring this up because I know we had talked about this. We had mentioned the High Republic before, but maybe I just wasn't paying attention in class because I did not realize this was a book series.
Oh,
and
really?
they made, and it's not just a book series. It's like an adult book series. It's like a middle, like a teenage book series. It's a kids book series. It's a little kids book series, and it's a comic series. They were just making such a big deal about this. I can't remember the last time they've made a big deal about a book series. Like they had a launch event. They had like an 1.5 hour long launch event for this. I guess I just thought that this was going to be something, and it might turn into something more. But I must have missed the thing that it was books and comics.
So something that Star Wars does a lot and has kind of always done for a long time is that there's always been supplemental content around some of their cinematic
Sure.
or even their television side pieces of media. They've always had some sort of a narrative, not a narrative. They've always had they've released a book version of just about every movie that's come out. The sequel trilogies all got novelizations. Novelizations was the word that I was looking for. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, got a graphic novel. I've got it on my shelf back there.
Yeah.
With the investors announcement coming with all of the new Star Wars content that they had out there, there's one in particular that I was really excited about, and it was The Acolyte. Which made me feel like there was that was kind of a hint towards they're going to push us back to a much older version of the Star Wars galaxy, which would fall into the Old Republic / High Republic era. The High Republic era is not something that I am terribly familiar with, but based off of its, like, I imagine that this could be their first real canonical effort into the much older world of Star Wars, which is really exciting because there's some awesome stuff in there. I mean, obviously you're dealing with the Jedi at their peak level. And a lot of the Old Republic era stuff kind of starts to take place as that era is falling. And so is this a precursor to some Old Republic stuff that they're going to cover? Is this a completely different era entirely? I haven't been looking into it too deeply because I do want to get a hold of these books and kind of experience it for the first time. It's kind of like the movie trailer thing that I tend to do when a new movie's coming out. I don't want to have a bunch of information ready ahead of time. I kind of want to get my first experience, maybe even reading the back of the book when I finally get the thing in. But with The Acolyte coming out and a bunch of other stuff coming in there, I feel like they're wanting to give us another option to familiarize ourselves with a somewhat connected piece of media that kind of keeps you locked in there. Kind of like they have done with a lot of different things. I don't think that this is a effort solely based off of that, but it makes a lot of sense that they would be trying to cover a much broader area of Star Wars, especially after Kathleen Kennedy's comment about how vast the Star Wars universe is and how many different stories that they can tell.
Sure.
So, I mean, I would hope that they're dipping their toes in the water with this to kind of like see where the interest would be
Mm-hmm.
for other forms of media. But either way, I'm happy to see that there is more. There's more comic stuff. There's more book stuff, and it's all going to be canon too, which is
Yeah.
excellent.
Well, and I mean, I wasn't saying that I was surprised that it was books just because of books. I mean, I've known that expect even since Disney took over and disbanded of the, or started categorizing the old Star
The
Wars
extended
extended
universe
universe
stuff is
as legends. Now they've they've released tons of books. They have a new Thrawn trilogy. They have the
mhm.
Aftermath books. They've released stuff from prequels, stuff from they've Lost Stars. They've released a shit ton of books.
None of them were
But
marketed like this, though.
yeah, none of them had this fanfare. None of them had an hour and a half launch event. And I guess, and granted, none of them had this type of rollout either, where you have, I mean, if I'm remembering this correctly, you have the Light of the Jedi is the first of the adult books. This is like a medium tier, like teenager book, and then this is for kids, and then you have the comics. So they've got them for all age ranges. And I just checked Audible, and they're all on Audible, with the exception of the comics. But all three reading levels are on Audible. So I might check out the Audible one of this. But I just saw people freaking out about it, and I'm like, wait, what? This is just books? I just must have missed that. But I mean, that's cool. I'm glad I saw so much stuff on Facebook over the last week of just people like, I got Light of the Jedi, and I'm like, man, I can't remember the last time I saw somebody this excited about a book. And let's be fair, the Disney Star Wars books have not all been received that well. Like I heard Lost Stars and the Aftermath books were not that well received. I heard the Thrawn books are interesting because they're written by Zahn, who wrote the original Thrawn books. So I'll probably eventually try to read those. But yeah, I guess I just didn't see this coming. But that's cool. I mean, I guess they're really diving deep into this.
Well, so I mean, the Star Wars universe is expanding because this is another part, something that I wanted to talk about, but I completely forgot to tell you to add it to the lightning round today. Is that EA, the video game publisher, is no longer has exclusive rights to the Star Wars IP.
Oh wow!
So there is a new
even after Fallen Jedi, they didn't get to keep it after Fallen Jedi, huh?
Well, it's complicated. They don't have exclusives to Star Wars anymore. They still own that particular property because obviously
Sure.
they develop it and they have contracts there. So there's probably going to be a sequel because there's explicit mention that that's still alive when this news announcement came out. But there is a quote from Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm president. As we look to the next 50 years of Lucasfilm, we look forward to continuing the wonderful legacy in games, which has introduced so many memorable characters and stories. These new collaborations will allow the Lucasfilm Games team, which is a new division of Lucasfilm. Well, I consider it the new LucasArts, really.
Sure.
But this will allow the Lucasfilm Games team to pursue fresh and exciting directions in the storytelling of Star Wars and Indiana Jones in imaginative and different ways than those explored by our films. And one of the first announcements that came is that Massive Entertainment, which is a Ubisoft studio, and it's the same developer who did the Division games, which if you played the Division, the Division was great, actually. I really liked the Division. They have entered into a partnership with Lucasfilm Games to develop an open world Star Wars game. Which
I thought you were going to say didn't they also announce Indiana Jones? I thought that's what you were going to say.
No, we were talking about Star Wars, so I was trying to keep everything kind of related. But yeah, there's an Indiana Jones thing that
okay, so
Kathleen Kennedy hinted at too.
Open
so we've got
world.
We're gonna have a open world Star Wars
open world.
Game. Yeah,
isn't that technically what that is?
I mean, it's somewhat open world.
Okay.
You've got a very linear storyline as far as Fallen Order goes. There's not necessarily side quests that you're focused on in Jedi Fallen Order. You're definitely not as linear as most of your linear type games would be considered,
Sure.
but I wouldn't necessarily call Fallen Order an open world game.
Okay.
When I'm talking about open world, I'm picturing something more in the vein of the Spider-Man games, where yes, there is a linear story, but you can do it whenever you want. There's side quests. There's a whole mess of other things that you can do. The Witcher 3, the Division games. If you're not familiar with those, they're kind of a looter shooter game style, and it has like a multiplayer, an optional multiplayer component, if you really want to call it optional. But this is exciting. This is really exciting because
That's big news.
Lucasfilm made a specific note. Lucasfilm Games says that Lucasfilm Games, which ultimately has final approval over everything, they said we get no. Let's see. Lucasfilm Games Vice President Douglas Riley said, "We get no shortage of folks knocking on our door wanting to play with our toys. This is really the culmination of years preparing to come out and say, we're here, we've got a team of people, we're going to make a lot of great games, and here's some new things you weren't expecting from us to do that we're now starting to do." And that's going to continue throughout the next year or so. We're going to continue to announce projects that are more representative of the legacy of the old Lucasfilm games that we're now trying to live up to. He said, let's see, this was Disney Global Games and Interactive Experiences Senior Vice President Sean Chopaw. That is quite a title. Electronic Arts has been and will continue to be a very strategic and important partner for us now and going forward, but we did feel there's room for others. So,
well,
basically, we've got a bunch of different possibilities that the Star Wars IP could go into as far as the video game world, and that is incredibly exciting.
And I am sure that the moment that Disney bought Lucasfilm and all of this stuff, this was always the plan. You know, EA has dropped the ball several times, but Disney wants control of all of their shit. So I'm sure it was a matter of we need to wait for a certain time for a certain contract to die out or whatever. But I'm sure this was planned for years, ever since that acquisition. However, so I'm still surprised because EA it's been that Star Wars name for so long. And yeah, Fallen Order was great. It's not so great that we could forget all of the missteps that they made. But I certainly hope that
pretty good step in the right direction, though.
It is a good step. It's a great. It was an amazing game. We've said this enough about it, and I just hope that they're still committed to doing a quality sequel, even though now they don't have the exclusive gaming rights for it. But I can't imagine. I mean, I just really want a sequel nonetheless. So as long as I still get a sequel, I don't care. But awesome. That's good news. I didn't know about that.
It is very exciting.
All right, so 43 minutes.
Yeah. Almost as exciting as us getting to our main topic.
Yeah,
after
43-minute
lightning round.
Let's get to the main topic, which is you finally sat down and finished. Well, not finally. I mean, you just started it, really, but yeah, I've been waiting for a while.
Under my standards, I finished it pretty quick.
You finished it pretty quick.
I was ready to talk about it on Monday, but I got busy with so much stuff. I actually forgot to even hit you up, say, "Hey, do you want to film?" So I could have talked about it on Monday as I had originally planned, but with everything that I've got going on, I still made time to make sure I finished this show. Which easily enough, because it is only 7 episodes, but it's 7 solid hours of content to get through.
Yeah, they ain't doing that Disney Plus 30-minute episodes crap. Nope.
No. And get through is kind of rude because I still felt like I could have taken more after every episode. It was I feel like they struck a really good balance with this one. We're just going into our non-spoiler review right off the bat. So if you're interested in jumping into Queen's Gambit, 7 episodes, 1 hour apiece. The last one's a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't feel like they're dragging it out at all.
Did you say we're doing spoilers or we're not doing spoilers yet? Because
not yet. Not
okay.
Yet. I was keeping it
a little bit before, but yeah.
Yes, we have. Well, we've talked about it in non-spoiler tactics before, so I just want to get my quick fire review out there because that's all a non-spoiler review can be from me.
Sure. Well,
And
let's hear
yeah,
it.
an excellent story surrounding going over obsession, competition, and addiction. Um, Absolutely excellent cinematography. Uh,
Mm.
the feel that they captured of the era that they're trying to cover, which is predominantly in the '60s, um, was really really well done. I don't know what Netflix thing is with Soviet era, um, with Russian trying to bring Russians back as the main villains and everything. Then again, they kind of seem to be the main villains nowadays again. So who knows? It must be the Cold War era seems to be a favorite with Netflix hits right now. I mean, I'm only talking about two of them,
And it
but
doesn't help that everything over in Russia is just like their architecture is just gorgeous. I
right,
mean, it doesn't help. The colors and it's just
yeah,
I've always wanted to go over to Russia at some point, but yeah.
they really nailed the '60s aesthetic in a lot
Yeah, they
of
did.
the outways that they did. Um, there's a few slips, but nowhere near enough to take you out of the show. Honestly, at least not so much that it's upsetting or anything like that. And I got to give it to Anya Taylor-Joy. She did a great job of portraying somebody who very clearly has. They don't seem to go into it. So I'm not considering this a spoiler, but there's a mental disorder there. I'm gonna
There's a
call
lot
it
of issues there.
I'm gonna call it a disorder. I'm not gonna call it a disability because it certainly she's definitely high functioning. But she plays that character very very well, and I couldn't get enough. We ended up watching an episode a night for a few days, and then we ended up watching the last three all on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we we burned right through them, and it was great.
So I will say I've known a few people now that have either not seen it or they delayed themselves in seeing it because they don't know anything about chess. And I can tell you for the billionth time, you don't. You don't need to know about chess to watch this show. You're not
Yeah.
going to be lost. Even if all the promotional material looks like they're just sitting around a table playing a game, that is not what the episodes are.
No.
And here's the thing, I didn't realize this. I knew this was based on a novel. I didn't know that it was written by Walter Tevis. And Walter Tevis wrote The Hustler and The Color of Money, which are huge books, and they're huge movies. They're about about billiards. And Paul Newman starred in The Hustler, 1961 amazing film. And then he came back for the sequel, Color of Money, with Tom Cruise. Great films that are about people playing billiards that has nothing to do with billiards. Like, it's not about the pool, it's about the people and the drama in the movie. So if you can think of other sports films that they involve a sport, but that's not really you don't have to know anything about the sport to be able to enjoy the film. That's the same with this show. So if that's been
So
keeping you from watching this show, just take
yeah,
that out of your head.
definitely don't let that hold you up. I like when was this released? When did the show actually come out?
The show, I think it was
Like,
August or no, it was October. October.
okay, so did it miss like award season?
I think so. Yeah, it came out in like October 23rd, and the Emmys are early November, maybe.
Okay, so we might see this in this
Oh no,
year's.
the Emmys are fucking. They go into they cover programming through May, so it
It'll
should
be
be
in
on
this
next
coming
year's
year's
Emmys.
Emmys setup.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see multiple rewards for the show.
Oh,
Awards for the show.
definitely.
The thing that it reminded me of right off of the bat, well, not right off the bat, but a couple episodes in, it actually reminded me of the movie Whiplash. Does that ring any bells for you? Did you ever see Whiplash?
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah. I got a lot of feeling around that as far as like the relations between the main characters and their level of obsession.
The
Um,
obsession for sure. That's what that
that
Whiplash is all about. Yeah,
yeah,
commitment, obsession, genius, and the mix between them all. Yeah,
there was a lot of direct correlations, and so I kind of had that same feeling. And Whiplash is one of my favorite movies too. But that one, yeah, that's the level of obsession, and we're talking about an Oscar-winning film, a multiple Oscar-winning film, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, if honestly, I'm somewhat familiar with chess. I played a lot when I was in high school. I wasn't part of any chess clubs or anything like that. But there are a lot of elements that I wasn't familiar with at all, but they glaze over it in a beautiful way to where they are really not focusing on, like, chess is the main driver of the story, but at the same time it's not.
Sure.
It's really the chess is kind of the trailer that they've loaded all of the story elements on top of. It's just wheeling the show along.
It's like when you watched like the documentary on the Bulls, whatever that documentary was, that Michael Jordan and the Bulls, or you watch like HBO has a documentary on who's the big golfer,
Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods. Why was I thinking Tiger King? I'm like, I know it's not Tiger King. You can. I'm super excited. I play golf, but I'm not a huge golf fanatic. But you can watch those documentaries around a figure that just because they were so damn good.
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance was the Bulls one, yeah. So
Jordan's.
there's a lot of people that have watched that never played basketball, or at least not religiously in their life. But it's really interesting to watch that because you know who those people are. And just to see their life. And that's what this is. And it was so damn good and so detailed. A lot of people were like, is this a true story? Like, it's not. It's not a true story. But
I think a lot of people can relate.
So well.
I think a lot of people can relate in one way or another to the level of obsession.
Yeah.
And so without that, I've actually got limited amount of time today. So I want to jump into spoiler talk.
Okay.
So this is your warning for everybody watching. You are no longer safe from spoilers at this point. So go and watch the show and then come back to this point, or just wait on our YouTube channel. I'll put up a separate video for this particular part here. So, Josh, why don't you kick off spoiler talk? Like, what was your favorite element? Maybe give me your favorite, your favorite moment in the show, specifically. That's not the finale.
Sure. Well,
not in the finale episode.
Okay, I will say that besides our main character's performance, who's just great. I love the aesthetic. We already talked about the aesthetic. I loved the. I guess we'll do the next slide. Basically, not only is she really good at chess, but you learn that when she grew up in a home for girls, and back then it was kind of like what's that? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They gave you pills to kind of sedate you and stuff like that, and one of the pills they gave was a downer, Tranquility, and she. Her friend tells her to, hey, take it at night. It'll help you sleep. And she starts taking it. And when she takes it, her mind just goes places. And once she starts learning about chess, Tranquility helps her just zone everything out and just think about chess to the point where she's playing it on the ceiling at night. And the more she learns about chess, the more she wants more of these pills. And just that development of her getting to the point where at first you're kind of proud of her when she breaks into the pharmacy and you're just like, yeah, get that big thing. Like, it's not good. But then to the point where she's taking handfuls of it and shoving it down her throat. It's like, holy shit, this show goes places, and it's not like it's disturbing, but it's not disturbing. But to see her development and her cruxes of alcohol and tranquility, and then how she overcomes them, and then how they creep back into her life later on. I loved that element. I mean, there's so many layers to it. It's not just that she's good It's that she has handicaps, and then how she deals with those and fails to deal with those. I just thought that was an incredible story element and character element.
Yeah, the the moment where she like she's experiencing withdrawals,
Mm-hmm.
like, and Jolene had seen it before. The friend of hers, like, she's just
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, it was just kind of like a normal day for her, really, because she had seen it so frequently, and had probably experienced it herself.
Mm-hmm.
At the young age that she was at the time too, it's pretty rough. Um, yeah, the young actress who played young Beth was just, my God, like, she did such a good job of it.
She did, yeah. What was her name? The young actress.
I don't know.
But she was good. She wasn't
Should know.
like, as you can see, even here, Taylor Joy's playing a younger version of her, but they did have a young girl playing her for a little bit, and she was great. I mean,
Yeah,
she
like
killed it.
child Beth.
Yeah.
My favorite moment was actually like the moment that kind of like hooked me into the show, and it was just the
Mm-hmm.
cinematography that was doing it. Really, that was what was getting me, and I'm a sucker for that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in the basement, and Mr. Scheibel is teaching her how to play chess after spending however long she does banging erasers and just kind of like slowly like seeing what he's doing. Finally asks
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. Um, and after they've played a few games, and I can't remember what episode it is. It might even be the first one. Um, because like I said, I burned through the show. It kind of all blended together after a while.
Yeah.
Um, the yeah, there's a moment where I think she asks him how she's doing or something like that, and he just tells her, "Is like, to be honest, you're astounding." Like, there's just like the awe in his eye about having discovered a chess prodigy. Um, at I think she was 8 at the time or something like that. Like,
Yeah. She was young,
yeah,
but she was
and
older than other prodigies, which she later learns. Like she got into this late, even though you're like, man, she's really young to be playing such an adult game. You learn
yeah,
later that there's prodigies that are half her age, that have already, done well.
with what they did with the cinematography, and they're in a small set. They're
Mm-hmm.
using a single light solution here. Obviously, there's other lights in the area, but like they captured the look,
Mm-hmm.
and like in this super dark, muggy area that a basement in this particular area is supposed to look like. They just captured this beauty, this beautiful moment, and I'm just like, that is so cool. That was my favorite element of it, and it wasn't even like a main story element to it. It was just like this beauty in cinematography and gaffing and set design. It was just like, it was the behind the scenes stuff that normally doesn't get a shitload of credit in great pictures. Like, I gotta look him up. I gotta look him up here. Cinematographer for Queen's Gambit,
Steven
Steven Meisler.
Meisler, yeah.
Um, let's see. What do you got, Golden Boy? Yeah, I gotta actually now I gotta look at the camera that it's been using. I've jumped down a fucking but yeah, the cinematography, the set design, the lighting, and the sound, like the sound designer, the sound engineer, like whoever organized that did an excellent job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was like they played a lot of music to kind of capture the mood. They used like hits from that era in a proper way too.
Yeah.
Because you have a few moments where they're just playing like pop hits from that era. I don't know if I want to call them pop hits, but like hits from that era.
Sure, reminding you what
And
era they're in, but it's not over the
right,
top. It's not like a Guardians of the Galaxy full soundtrack or anything.
no, the man, it was just it was
There's so
just so
much
good.
from a story element and from a writer. I love it when they just nail things. And for this was only 7 episodes. This could have been a 10 episode show. There is no
Oh,
point in
easy.
this series that I thought it dragged. and they chose not to spend time on things that I think other shows would have. Like, for example, this guy, the guy that teaches her, he teaches her chess. She goes on to become amazing. We don't know who he is. We just know that he's a custodian. We don't know, was he used to be a chess champion? What's his background? Why is he there? They don't spend time on that because it's not necessary. But they
Yeah.
give you enough, and the choices they make. Like, for example, I mean, come on, how many other shows would you imagine that the guy in the basement of a girls' school was a good man, and didn't have any
Yeah,
type of
that's fair.
ulterior ulterior motives or anything like that? Even when she broke the rules, like, he obeyed the rules of the school. He denied her for a long time, and I was just like, man, that's just awesome. Like, he was a really good character. And then to see her, like, make sure that he got credit down the line, when the news, only cared about sensationalism. And she was like, you know what? If you're really going to ask me what you should type, I want you to make sure you list his name. And that was a big moment. I really liked their
Yeah.
character choice. I don't have a picture of her, but the other character I really liked was the mom that adopted her, Alma Wheatley. Her and her husband, her reluctant husband, adopts um, uh, the
Beth.
main character, Beth, when she's a teenager, and you can tell the dad's not in on it, but the mom is. And at first, I was like, the mom's she's a drunk, she's kind of a druggie, she's her life is going down the shitter, she doesn't have a lot of money because she's spending it on cigarettes and stuff. And then she sees this girl walk into her life that has a talent that maybe she can make money off of. I thought they were going to go down the route of, oh, she's just going to use her for her money, she's going to be a terrible influence. And she's kind of a terrible influence, but
She kind of
she's a good
was like, a
mom.
little bit.
She's half and half, though. Like, they don't go to any of the extreme, and it gets to the point where the main character does love her like a mom, and when she's gone, it's a solid loss. And you do feel for this woman, and she never goes to, like, evil stepmother level. Like,
No.
she felt real, and she had enough good in her that you felt that, and you were happy that the main character had a mom in her life when her other mom, just basically tried to kill her, So,
Yeah, and I thought the dad was gonna rape her like right off the bat.
oh God, I did
Like
too. I was
the
so
way that they
glad they
were
didn't do that.
the way that they were playing it, I felt like the dad was just gonna be an evil prick, and turns out he's just a negligent one because he just bails.
Yeah, he was a prick for sure, but he didn't go that route, thankfully.
Oh,
But yeah,
they sent him down a major asshole rabbit hole.
yeah, for
The
sure.
the only thing that I didn't like about Mr. Scheibel is that they
Mhm.
never brought him back. That made me really sad, but I think that was probably the intention. I
Oh,
feel
for
like
sure.
they kind of wanted you to feel like she had just lost yet another, like she had lost her only real father figure, honestly. And she expresses that loss too.
She does.
In the final episode, like that's the first time we ever like, and it was really touching because after all of the shit that she goes through, she loses her mother
Mhm.
and ends up in an orphanage. She gets adopted by these people. The dad runs off like right away. Uh,
Mhm.
like the mother dies of a disease that she felt like she had mentioned it before, like it had come up. I was like, you think maybe the drinking's what's getting you so sick, and she just kind of like brushes it off.
Mhm.
And then she has this diva moment where she like pretty much nixes out all of the men in her life that like
Mhm.
wanted to help her out. And then she reconnects with this character from the orphanage who finds her because like her only father figure died. And it's like, fuck. Like after all the shit that she had already gone through, that was the thing that actually broke her down. And it
Oh,
was
right.
like,
Yeah.
and it was just like, cause she never, like she was in like a self-destructive spiral through most of the show. Uh, but I don't know how much of that you can attribute to the losses that she did. Like because she had kind of started on that while she like kind of
Oh yeah,
early on.
she was
Uh,
distracted all of her life. Yeah.
but she was tolerating it for the most part throughout. But it isn't until like she finally has this like it was such a beautiful moment too. Where she goes down to the basement and she finds all the clippings. Like he kept everything that he could find on her.
He followed her success.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, it was so beautiful. And then she has that breakdown moment. And then again, like you mentioned, where she like like she's explaining her championship win, and like she makes it a point and is like, you need to promise me that you're going to print his name.
Right.
Like I
Because
want
without
people to
her,
know that he got there.
besides teaching her the game, he gave her the money to enter her first tournament,
Yeah, and
and
she owed him that money
and
too. She never
and
paid
she
him
owed
back.
him that money, and she but then I also appreciated that it never went back to him, because it does show once she got into it, like things picked up, and then they started
Yeah,
doing time jumps, and then the things that she was looking forward to happen, and then she's looking forward to another thing, and then years later he died, and he was the one that got her to her first one, and she never paid him back just because things just picked up for her, and you never got the sense that there was resentment. He was just like a proud father figure that watched her and was proud of her. And yeah, I mean, he was a great character, man. And I feel like weaker shows or lesser shows would have given you like the filler episode that was his life,
yeah.
and I think they did just enough to make him a damn good character that when she does find out that he's gone, you felt that loss. But you wanted to talk about some other characters like this guy.
Well, I figured that they would come up,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, out of all the old Harry Potter actors, I think this guy's been like the most prominently featured in like good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Mm-hmm.
that Daniel Radcliffe has made some good films, but like I haven't seen Rupert Grint in much of anything. Then again, I think that's kind of on purpose. I don't think he's like super big on it. And then Emma
Mm-hmm.
Watson's been in some stuff, but honestly, I don't know how much of it you'd consider noteworthy. And then
Mm-hmm.
this guy, the character who you were supposed to hate from absolutely everything. I mean, he was the bad guy in the Old Guard, and he did okay. He did okay, and I don't think he did as good as he could have, but he did.
That's right. He was the bad guy in the old guard. Totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was like the pharmacy bro, the farm bro
he was
guy.
Farmer Bro and fucking Zuckerberg all rolled into one. Like
That's
it's
right.
just,
That's right.
yeah,
He was
it
great
was a
in
little.
this.
He did a really good job, and
What's his
honestly,
name? His name's Harry
Harry
Melling,
Beltic.
and he was Harry Beltic in the show. Harry Melling is his actual name,
Yeah.
so he got to keep his first name. But yeah, I loved
um,
his character.
and we're talking about a British actor. You didn't really like get that accent off of him.
Right, right,
Like he played like he did a pretty good job. At first his southern was a little bit thicker,
sure.
and that kind of dropped off a little bit, but which I find kind of weird because there's a lot of actors who say that the southern accent's the easiest one to do as far as
And I
American
wonder if
accents.
that's just because they figure the majority of people watching it aren't Southern, and we just we
Well,
we
that
lump that twang in together. I'm sure people from those areas are like, that's not how we sound. But
well, I think
just like
there's
when I
a
hear a Nebraska accent, I'm like, bullshit. That's not how we
yeah.
sound.
I mean, I think that there's something to do with like there was some linguist article that I ended up reading like a long time ago that said that southern uh kind of that southern twang and that weird southern accent that they have is like the most closely
Mhm.
related to the British accent, like as far as pronunciation science goes. It was an
Okay,
interesting article, but I remember them making
I'll
that
have to look that up.
close association.
You're making me think of Fred Armisen's like reoccurring joke where he talks about the different accents. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his stand-ups, but
Uh,
he'll get it down to the city. It's pretty funny shit. But this guy, um, the arcs that well not arcs, just the different like layers we see of him. The first time we see him, he's
he's
hot
a
shit.
legend.
He's
Like
legend. He's like, who is this?
he's the guy to beat. Everybody's worried about him. Like, oh my god, he's
Right.
like, I think he was was he grandmaster? Or was he just like super high rated?
I think he was super high rated. He was like
Yeah,
the highest rated, and she was like, "How do I play him?" And they're like, he
whatever.
plays
You ain't
behind the
getting there.
curtain. You ain't getting there." And of course she does. But so he starts at that level. Then when she starts picking up, he starts coming around, and my wife loved him. She loved him a lot. He starts coming around, and he kind of he then turns into a friend. Later turns into a housemate as he's going to help her prepare
Slash
for a big
coach.
role.
Yeah.
Slash coach slash love interest. He falls for her, and she
Does he fall for her? I feel like he has I feel like he has an attraction to her, but it's almost a tragic one.
Oh, it's tragic. I
and he
feel
kind
like
of
he did fall for her. She didn't fall for him. I think they have sex, and you could just tell in his eyes that he's like hoping for more than just sex, and she was just like, okay, well, let's get back to the chess thing. And eventually he leaves, but I don't know. Maybe I just read into it, but I thought that it felt to me
I mean,
like he wanted a relationship, and she didn't want that from him.
there was probably something there. It was a pretty funny dichotomy because like she had like they were laying in bed and all she wanted to talk about was chess, and then she has a similar experience with Benny, and all he wants to talk about is chess. Like I don't know, it kind of honestly like
Oh
they
yeah, it was
definitely
like a
portrayed
reverse with Benny. Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely portrayed it like she had a better experience with him than anybody else.
Well, she had an attraction to Benny, and we'll get to. We might as well just go to Benny. She had an attraction to him because he was more of a, then he was the next level up. When she started, she started seeing him, and the first time she sees him, he's not even playing in the tournament. He's like, I'm just here to chat.
Well, he was already champion at that point too, so he's just like, yeah,
Right.
It didn't matter to me. I don't really care.
He's
like,
walking around like he's fucking Dundee of the chess, with his trench coat and hat. I love this actor. What's his name? He's the dude he's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah, I know I recognized him from something, and I think Cece pointed out that he was an officer in The Force Awakens of some kind.
Was
so
he?
I guess he had a small part in that.
Oh God, I know he's from like
he was in The Maze Runner, which
he's in The
I
Maze
hadn't
Runner.
seen.
He was in Love Actually as a tiny little kid, and Nanny McPhee as another tiny little kid. He's been around since he was tiny, but even still, I think this is one of those examples of you are cursed with a little boy face because
this is where I recognize him from. He was Jojen Reed in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. That's
where
right.
I recognize him from.
And you're right, he was in Force Awakens. He's been in a lot of shit. He's acted a lot, but he looks so damn young to the point where he's supposed to be well older than her. Like, they're not supposed to be on the same level, and yet half the show he looks like her younger brother, Like,
he really
that
does.
was the only thing that brought me out of it. Like, how old is this guy supposed to be?
Even with the mustache, he looked like her baby brother. It was weird. Like,
it did.
I don't know.
Like,
it was when he had the hat on.
Hair. Look at you.
When he had the hat on, for some reason, it made him look younger. When he took it off, it aged him a little bit, which I thought was kind of weird.
It made him look like he was dressing up, like in someone else's clothes. I want to read the book now and see if they ever say how old he is, because imagine the dynamic if he was a lot older than her. Because it kind of felt that she goes after so many guys in this show, and the first guy she really falls for turns out to be gay, and she's just crushed. She's crushed by it because she falls for him hard, and he turns out to be a good friend of hers and comes back later and really helps her out. But this was her
big
next
role
crush.
in the ending. Yeah,
That's what I loved. Like, all the men in her life could have been like, oh, you passed me off, fuck you,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk shit about you, I'm gonna spread lies about you. That's not the route they go. All the men in her life she meets through the game. And instead of being jealous of her, they're just so impressed by her that even when they are personally crushed, or even when the relationships don't go the way they want to, they're still so in love with the game and in love with her and in love with her and the game that they end up being the best support group she could ever ask for. It's beautiful.
The beautiful thing about this whole show is that there isn't a personified villain in the entirety of it.
No.
The villain
Like
throughout the entire show is like the alcohol, the drugs, the addiction and the obsession that she tangles with throughout the whole time. She's her own worst enemy throughout the show. Like, because even Borgov, the big bad, the badass grandmaster, the one to beat, the Russian, like the beast, the monster that like everybody like hails him to be, even he isn't he isn't even that intimidating as far as we're concerned. She is incredibly intimidated by him, the way he plays the game. She exercises that brilliantly. But that kind of goes deep into like the Russian, like the way that Russians kind of do things when it comes to sport and competition. Like and I mean, they go into it in the show that he's got KGB agents following around to make sure he doesn't try and run away or escape or anything like that, because like the government funds his competition.
Right. Even when she goes over to Russia, she has to go with her own agents because of the Cold War shit and
But she had to pay her way over there too, which was
right. We're not going to help you, but you have to do what we say because you're going over to Russia.
Yeah, we have to make sure that you don't get involved in anything we don't want you getting involved in. But yeah, like there's no real true villain personified throughout the show. It's addiction, it's obsession, it's drugs and alcohol.
Time. It's all personal things,
mental issues. Like it's a battle within your own mind, which is why it relates to everybody. Like chess could be left out of the equation, and you're still gonna have like you don't have to relate to chess at all. It's just like you said, because everybody can relate to at least some aspect of this. If you weren't addicted to something, you probably know somebody who was. If you don't know anybody who was, you probably know somebody who was obsessed with something to a point where nothing else was important to them. You might have experienced that yourself. And if you haven't experienced any of those, you've probably experienced a mental disorder of some kind, or a death in the family or something like that. Like there's this girl, God, Beth goes through it all.
In 7 episodes, she goes through fucking hills, man. I mean, it's not just like she has one down moment, but the rest is like, it's not like a Rocky movie where she loses once and then there's a montage and then she wins it. Oh no, there's like hills and cliffs and there's downers and uppers and middles and there's so much that happens in 7 episodes. It's crazy.
Now, I like I said, I don't have a huge amount of time left, but I do want to talk about negatives. Did you have any? Was there anything that you didn't like that sticks out?
Man, no, and I'm sure, and you're kind of hinting that you did. I looked back at this, and I've watched it twice now. I watched it once myself, then I watched it with Maddie. I loved the ups and downs of this show. I loved how it put myself as the viewer in an awkward position, because I'm rooting for her and I'm you got this big match coming up. Just focus. But then I think about it and I'm like, man, that's just like when you hear about child actors that don't get to have a life, and then they just get fucked up because the second they do, they go overboard because they haven't had a life. And that's the same with her. Sometimes she's just focusing. I can't do anything. And then a friend shows up and just says, come down and have a drink, or let's go talk to some boys. And then the next morning she's so fucked up that she ruins it, and then you're just like, you don't know how to feel, because one side you're happy that she finally had a break and that she had a life, and then the other side you're pissed because she didn't close herself away. And I love those. I felt it was so just right. And I'll say one more pro, and then you can get to your negatives. The other thing about Russia, they weren't the villain, but they were written so well, because it was just by chance I had watched this documentary on Tetris right before I saw this show.
Oh, really?
And there's a really good documentary about Tetris on YouTube, and it came from Russia. And the way that the Russian government got involved in fucking Tetris, but while it was starting to leak out into the rest of the world, and how territorial they were about it, because it was their baby. And suddenly everybody, all the way to Nintendo, wanted a piece of it. And Russia was like, this is ours, and we're going to make sure we get ours due. And then the guy that made it, and how he was more loyal to Russia, to Mother Russia, than he was to get his own cut, and took him decades to get anything for himself and for his family. It just showed how crazy strict and crazy ownership Russia is over their things. And then to watch this and to see how seriously they were taking chess, I was just like, that's just, I know this is fiction, but it mirrors real life so well. So I thought that was a huge pro for me. But I don't know, what are your what things irked you a bit?
There was one more positive that I really liked, and it was another clever bit of writing, where there were a bunch of moments where this happened. So you had Mr. Scheibel, who played Beth as she was a child, and he makes it clear that she is the best he has ever played. Mm-hmm. Then we have a moment between her and the very young Russian boy, whose name I cannot remember.
It's a great scene.
And she gets cocky with him. She destroys this child, but she also lets him know that he's the best she's ever played. And so that age difference comes in again. And then the finale, so that's kind of in the middle of the series. And then the very ending of the series, she comes up across Luchenko, who is the like he was the original prodigy. Like he was the guy that
she read books about him and shit.
Yeah, she had read up on him for forever. And she gets that moment again, where he kind of like, and I almost thought that it was Scheibel in disguise of some kind. Like I thought they had recycled the actor or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, she had that same moment where he mentioned to her that you are probably the best I believe I have just finished the game with the best player I've ever played.
And he was getting help from the other top three down the hall of the
hotel.
They
were all cooperating with each other.
They were like, this is what you got to do. They
were trying to like knock her out. And, but at the same time, he had just this glorious respect for her. And that was so great. And it was just this cool thing to kind of like showcase. There are things in this world, doesn't matter how long you've been playing it. Like you can, like, there's a skill cap. There's a skill level that everybody gets to. And I only had one negative, and it wasn't story related or anything like that. It was the very, very ending. So Beth has won her championship. She's in the car with the State Department guy. Yeah. My nose itches like fucking mad. They're going over her flight to get back and everything she's got going on. And then she decides to get out of the car. She says that she's going to walk. And I'm like, to where, bitch? What are you doing? Like, but immediately I was like, okay, she's going back to that Russian park where fucking everybody was playing chess.
Yeah.
And at first I was just like,
a bunch of Mr. Scheibels. Yeah. A bunch of them.
Yeah. That's what it came down to. So I didn't take it. I didn't take it as a story negative, but the fucking shaky cam that they did to Walker there.
Oh, I do remember the shaky cam. I was like, is this Hunger Games 1? What is this?
Dude, it was so nauseating. I was so upset because the cinematography was so perfect. And I was like, they're going to end it on like this super high point. It's going to be beautiful. And then they're like, nope, fucking shaky cam. We had to suck somewhere in this show.
It was weird. I do remember that now. You're right.
I was so upset by it. It bothered me. Cece was getting motion sick. Like, that's how bad it was.
It was extreme. I wonder if it was like third level, hey, we need a shot of her walking, and Steve's not here to shoot it or something.
It was so weird because shaky cam is something like that I would absolutely, like, most cinematographers reserve shaky cam for moments of discomfort or like something to kind of like express the level of action that's going on. But it was like slow-mo shaky cam almost. Like it was
You're right.
It was
Well,
such
and
an oddly
handheld,
placed choice for that shot, and it was beyond handheld.
right?
It was
No, there's
aggressive. They
handheld
were
when
like,
you're yeah. Like it did remind me of Hunger Games or episode 1 or Hunger Games 1 because it was the cinematographer was all about shaky cam to the point where you
oh
couldn't
man,
fucking see what was going on. And it wasn't just the action, it was also when they were walking. It was that bad. I can't even watch that film because it annoys the shit out of me. I do remember that now. I totally forgot about it. But it was once that point was done and she finds all the old men in the park and they
yeah, they
recognize
finally
her,
knock it off, and
and she's just like, I've got no place to be, fuck the state guy, I just did the biggest thing in my life. I just want to relax. I was like, I thought
yeah,
that ending was great, but I
she
do
just wants to
agree that
smoke
that scene was
people a little
weird.
bit. It was very
Yeah.
clear to me. I'm sure you spotted it too, but the man that she ended up sitting across from was absolutely the Scheibel actor, um, dressed up to look different. He isn't credited in the show as playing that character or anything like that, but it looked so much like him. Um,
If it wasn't him, it was meant to
it was
give you
very
that
much
feeling.
intended to give you the feeling that she was sitting down with another Scheibel
she was
character.
she was sitting down at her peak as the champion
Yeah,
versus as the little girl. Yeah, oh yeah, the mirror was there. I have to go back to see if it was the same actor or not, but I got the purpose of that. That was beautiful. I know you have limited time. Some of the other things I did here was the colors, and we talked about the aesthetic. They just nailed it, man. Everything about the era, I just loved it so much. um just things like this, just
yeah,
gorgeous.
the prop work was great. Like they did
i could
such a
have i
good
could
job
have
with all
filled the
that.
whole slideshow of just the locations they shot at and the prop work and everything. I mean, it was just beautiful. um
I felt really bad for the guys who were in charge of like watching what piece they moved and then moving it to the board and like having
oh,
to
I
keep
know,
track of that. Sometimes they
especially
move
at the
pretty
ones where
quick.
they were using
Yeah,
binoculars and
they fucking like snipe. They were having to like spot the damn things the entire time. I felt real
I
bad
mean,
for
thank
those
God it
guys.
wasn't speed chess, but yeah, they were. I felt
Oh,
bad
that
for those guys.
if they bothered during speed chess, they're heroes.
Right.
So okay,
So
so
I
what's this you got going?
There's no sound to this, but this just ended, and I didn't know about it. But it's something that Union Station in Los Angeles did this year, and it's pretty fucking incredible. I'll just let it play out. But it was just a little art thing that they did, art exhibit, one piece. But so they did of her, and they put the upside down game on the ceiling,
Huh.
and it's just gorgeous, which is a thing that she sees a lot
Yeah,
in the movie. And I thought that was just really darn cool. So it's kind of a neat.
that's a great marketing tool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like,
And they
cause
did
that
this at the end of the year to kind of celebrate it. It wasn't even like a, hey, go check out this new thing on Netflix. It was more like this thing got so big. That's
that
just a pretty
strikes a
cool.
huge level of curiosity for anybody who's completely unfamiliar with what's going on.
Right. What is
Like,
this? Yeah. So I thought that was, and then the whole bar,
that's
that's kind
really
of a
cool.
universal online streaming thing, whether it's YouTube or Netflix. It's pretty darn cool. So I thought that was a really neat exhibit that they did.
Well,
So,
overall, I gave this show like a good solid 9.8 out of 10. Um, and I only docked at those 2 points because the shaky cam drop that they did there, really irritated me because it was so out of place.
it was a weird
Um,
choice.
yeah, and there were a couple pacing issues at some points, but they weren't so dramatic that it really took me out of the show. Um, it's really hard for me to find a good solid 10 out of 10 for anything these days though. Because once you've got something that's at the 10 out of 10 spot, it's like, well, okay, what else? How do you measure anything up on top of that there? Um,
Okay, but and I think that's fair of you. I think there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
When we spoke the other week and we listed our top series of the year, you gave it to this without seeing the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Now that you finished it, would you still rate it as your top show of 2020?
Yes. 100%.
Okay, well then I think that's still the highest honor you can give it, whether it's a 10 out of 10 or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, that shaky cam was just aggressive enough for me to make it not completely perfect. And then of course I was upset that we never saw. I thought like a great ending, even if they had made it like a post credit scene, which they didn't have any, would have been her visiting Mr. Scheibel's gravestone, just leaving a $10 bill there. I thought that would have been like a really like touching moment. Maybe maybe she even gives him like maybe she even puts like the trophy from her world championship there or something like that. Like I wanted like some form of resolution to that wasn't just oh he's dead and she's upset about it. Like I wanted something like that, which I think they tried to do with that very ending scene where she sits across from somebody who was intentionally looking very much like him. But yeah, I didn't get the resolution to that I wanted. And you can't always get what you want, but yeah, that shaky cam was just enough for me to be like, all right, because that was the one time where I was pulled out of the show, and it was like during the finale. Like that's the
last seconds of the show.
That is the last place that you should break the viewer out and make them feel uncomfortable, and that is exactly what that did. So that was a big misstep for me, but it only took away 0.2 points from a perfect score. Otherwise, the show did absolutely excellent. And I highly recommend. I'm recommending to everybody I know that if they're looking, like anybody who asks me for something to watch and they hadn't seen Queen's Gambit already, I'm absolutely like, yes, go and watch Queen's Gambit for sure.
It makes me want to go read the book, because I had watched The Color of Money again in the fall after I'd seen this and still not made the connection between the two, because I love The Hustler and I love The Color of Money, and I love how I just love seeing, like there's a movie I just love like gambling movies or anything with someone that's really good, but they're like there's a really good Mark, I think it's called The Gambler. There with Mark Wahlberg. Is it Mark Wahlberg? Is that what his name is? Or whatever. Wahlberg. He plays the gambler, and he's like a really good gambler, but he has so many flaws, and he just keeps on fucking himself up.
There's a Kenny Rogers song called The Gambler. But yeah, 2014, Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I love those type of shows where you're aware that they're a genius, you're aware that they're better than almost everybody else, but the only thing that's holding them back is themselves. I love those type of stories, and the fact that this dude wrote 3 books of that: The Hustler, Color of Money, and now this. I mean, that's I've written more than 3 books, and and this guy wrote 6 books, and 4 of them were made into films, but 3 of them were about that theme, and they all nailed it. That's amazing. And I thought I want to read it to see how closely this show did. But the guy that made this show, the showrunner, was saying that whether it was him or somebody he knew, they've been trying to make the show for 30 years. This was a huge book when it came out. It came out in when did it come out? It was published in 1983, and it was big back then. And they've been trying to make this ever since. And I'm glad they waited, because it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I honestly didn't have any pacing issues with it. We saw so many highs and lows of this character. It didn't get repetitive for me. And the lows just kept on getting soul crushingly harder and harder for her to deal with, and for you to see her deal with it. And then just to see her support base every time her friends came and lifted her up, you were just like, oh my God, they're like the best people on the planet. Maybe that's my only thing, is that there's not that many good people in your life, but she had some amazing people in her life. But it was a good show, man. It's the most like heartwarming show I've seen in a long time, and it's really heavy, but it's so good.
I teared up a little bit when she got when Towns made the phone call for it. Like he handed her the phone while they're in
Right.
the hotel room, and she picks it up, and Beltic and Benny and the two twins whose names I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember. I think it's Matt and Mike. I think was their
Yep.
names. And like just like the chess group that she had met
Yeah.
over the years, and they're like trying to help her win. Like just like to see her reaction where she's finally sober, like she's been
Mm-hmm.
sober for a reasonable enough amount of time, and then she like reconnects with these people, and she's like, I was like, these people that I lost, they finally like they came back. Is the first people
Especially
that
when
I
one of them
lost who
turned her
came
down.
back.
Benny, like she had asked Benny to come with them, and he was like, "No, you treated me like shit.
Yeah, and don't call
I'm
me
not gonna,
again. Like,
And then she's alone in Russia, and they're all there for her, and they'll spend hundreds of dollars on a phone bill and stay up all night to review
that's funny.
strategy.
Hey, this is
It was
costing me a
great.
bundle. Like
Yeah,
I actually had a moment where I was like, "Fuck, right, yeah." Like it did pay out the ass for long distance
I
at
can
that
only
time.
imagine. Yeah.
Like, no, absolutely excellent show. This was a good show. We had a good episode today. I'm proud of
Yeah.
us.
I'm glad we finally got to talk about this.
We had a
Like,
45-minute lightning round, but I'm proud of us. We did good today.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, next episode, pretty solid for Monday. But I feel like there's plenty of stuff that we'll be able to talk about. Do you have any show recommendations? Is there something I need to jump into? Because that was something that I didn't mention during our tops episode. I was like, I have a New Year's resolution, which I don't normally do, and I'll talk about it after the show. I never did. I am going to like commit myself to watching new stuff far more frequently, because what I tend to do a lot is I'll end up watching something on repeat, and I'll like play video games or something like that. It's like, well,
Mhm.
I've I'm going to make like a conscious effort to like check out new stuff and kind of like get myself caught up in the world. So I need a show recommendation that isn't Breaking Bad, because
Yeah.
that's already on my list, and like I've already started watching that one too. I watched The
I'm
Irishman
looking
the
over.
other day too. So
Yeah, I'm looking over the shows that I've watched over the past year. Not all of like something like Amazon's Upload. That's a fun, quick
mhm.
paced kind of comedy that if you want something light, I really liked that.
I was looking at your top list too, so I'm looking at your
Yeah,
tops for
some of my
2020.
lows from last year. Ratchet was some bullshit. Don't watch that. Nurse
Oh,
Ratchet. I was so excited for that because I really liked One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Nope.
it
Fucking
was that
horrible
bad,
show.
huh?
It was bad, man. It was so
Damn.
bad. And I even watched it with my wife, who's a fairly big American Horror Story, and it's made by those creators. So she was coming into it thinking this was interesting already that they were doing Nurse Ratchet, and then liking American Horror Story, and even she didn't like it. It was just so bad, fucking bad. Raised by Wolves. I watched that. It's some very high concept sci-fi from what's his name? He made Alien, um, and Blade Runner. Fucking, he's a legend. Ridley Scott.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like
so show from Ridley Scott, and I'm like, hell yeah. It was interesting. It was a little too high concept for me.
I wanted to say Ripley, but I was like, no, that's the character's name. I was like, fucking,
Good character.
like,
Yeah.
like, like, it drove me nuts. Why couldn't I think? Why couldn't either of us think Ridley Scott at that moment?
Right.
uh,
Um, I'll tell you my top three shows right now. My top three ongoing shows. Two of them are on Netflix. One's called The Last Kingdom. It's based on history. It's about it's of the current Viking shows that are out there. It's better than Vikings, and it's about England's history and it has I mean, it's not fully a true story, but it has real characters in there. It's about Uhtred, who was supposed to be a king, and then got into some Vikings and was raised by Vikings, and then it's back and forth between the Vikings and the Saxons. Really damn good show. Really
okay.
good show. That's on Netflix. Um, Ozark. If you haven't watched Ozark, Jason Bateman. It is the current modern day Breaking Bad. It is Jason Bateman to his fullest potential. Money laundering, cartels, uh, good-ish
been-
people getting in fucked up situations. It's so damn good.
I've seen the first episode, and I was intrigued, but other stuff just kept fucking showing up. But I've been getting begged to watch that from other people too. So
Well, that's 3 seasons in now, and then the only other show would be The Expanse, and The Expanse is a sci-fi show. I can't talk it up enough. It's got Thomas Jane in it and a few other people. It's based on an amazing book series. It was on Sci-Fi, and at the time when it was on Sci-Fi, it was like the best thing since Battlestar Galactica, because Sci-Fi is known for some really good shows in its past, and then just layers and layers of shit.
garbage.
The Shark Tornado, Sharknado, whatever that series was.
They
so
knew
then
what they were doing when they made those. They knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't give a fuck if it was bad.
They finally came back to something good with The Expanse, and then they canceled it because they couldn't keep up with the quality of the show, and then Amazon saved it. And Amazon has put out 2 seasons now, and they've got 1 more coming, and then they're going to finish it off. Fucking amazing, good sci-fi. The first season is a little slow. The first half of the season is a little slow while you're figuring out where they're going with it. But then once it picks up, man, it's fucking awesome. Great cast, great story, great sci-fi. So those are my top 3 shows right now that are currently ongoing that I love.
All right. Well, I've got my list. I'll have to jump into some of those, and then we can talk about them. Maybe in a lightning round sense, because I feel like we'll be preaching to the choir for some people for some of these shows that I'm super behind on. But beyond that, great episode. Nerf Herders, tell us what you thought. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Hit the like button if you did. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest. We can take it. Hit us up with your comments. Let us know what you thought. Be a part of the conversation. What did you guys think of Queen's Gambit? What do you guys think about the lightning round news that we talked about? Is there something that we haven't talked about that you would love for us to talk about? Anything at all? Throw it in those comments. Find us on social media. You can find us at Nerf Herders Assemble on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find us at Nerf Herders Crew on Twitter. We need excuses to be more active on those. We need to be pressured, maybe even shamed a little bit.
That's true.
But until next time, have a good day, you guys. Take it easy.
See ya.